Okay, so welcome to Reiki Radio. Today we have a very special guest, one of my dear, dear teachers, Arjava Petter. So first, Arjava, I want to thank you for being here and taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and especially with the time difference because you're in Greece right now, right?
Yeah, we're in Greece. It's dark here. It's 7:30 or something p.m., but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you here for a couple of reasons. One, so that we can learn more about you and your story, but also so people can hear about Jikiden Reiki. I loved your classes, and we will get into that a little later. But first, I just wanted to start with your story because your bio is amazing. Like, not only have you authored over 6 books and you teach Reiki internationally, but from your bio, it sounds like your spiritual journey, I guess you would call it, started really in India. So could you tell us about that? How long ago?
Okay. So what happened was this. My brother, my elder brother, he went to India when he was 20 and I was 17. And we thought that he had gone crazy. My parents and I believed that he went a little cuckoo. So they sent me to check him out. So I went to India and I never came back.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it started. I went to the Osho ashram in Pune in 1979, and then I just stayed there for a few years.
So how was that? I mean, that had to be amazing, being able to learn from Osho, no?
There are really no words to describe that, how that was. I can only say that the moment I entered that place, the ashram there, I thought I never want to be anywhere else ever, and that's how it started.
In that space, is that what started your meditation practice and really the experience of connecting with yourself in different
No,
ways?
not really. I grew up, my parents were into homeopathic medicine and things. I didn't do well at school. I hated it because I just can't seem to do anything that I don't feel passionate about. And as a result of that, I got stressed out and started meditating when I was 15 or 16 with the father of one of my friends who was from India. So he got me started with doing Raja Yoga, meditating. And then I went to India and it all got more and more intense.
Wow. And so then after being there for a while, I know, and you do share this story in class as well, you made your way over to Japan. So what prompted you to even go there? Had you heard about Reiki before or not until being there?
It's quite a long story. So what happened was this: when I told you I got into meditating quite early when I was 15 or 16, and one of the themes that you could learn meditation about was Zen Buddhism. There were quite a few books available at the time, so I got one. It was called Zen Flesh and Zen Bones by Paul Reps. It's an incredible book, really amazing. And that's full of Zen stories. And I thought, boy, that would be really cool if I would be a person like that one day later on, like one of those people in those stories. And then I developed a passion for Japan. So I started reading lots of things about Japan. And then I decided that I will finish my high school and then I will go to Japan and enter a Zen monastery and never come back to Germany and never be heard of again, become one of those people. But instead, I ended up going to India, to Pune, which was in a way really the same thing, but very, very different. And I never made it to Japan. However, in Pune, then I met lots of Japanese people, and one of them later on I married and moved to Japan because of her.
Wow. Okay, so you intended to go to Japan before India was even an option. That's really interesting. And so
Yes.
You spent several years there, though. You were in Japan, what, like 12 years?
Yeah. I finally went in I think in 1989 the first time, and I left in 2002. So 12, 13 years I stayed there.
Okay, so while you were there, did you ever start studying Buddhism and all of the things that you had intended the first go round?
Yeah, I kept, but my study was mostly just reading books and doing it by myself. I didn't really have a teacher there because I got all my guidance from Osho. I still do. And the funny thing is that I actually learned Reiki in Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was living in Japan already for, I think, 4 years. Yes, in 1992, I went to Germany and studied Reiki from my brother, the same brother that I tried to rescue, but who ended up rescuing me. And I learned it there in Berlin, and then went back to Japan as a Reiki teacher, and then started teaching there. It was hilarious because I remember sitting on the plane thinking, I am German, I live in Japan, and I'm going to Germany to learn Japanese healing art and then bringing it back to Japan. It was really ridiculous. That's what happened.
So the Reiki that you learned in Germany, was that what we would consider Western, like a Western type of Reiki, or was it different than Jikiden? Is that where that started, or?
It's a can of worms. My story is really very, very funny. So I learned from my brother, and when I asked him where he had learned it, he said, "Oh, from a friend of so and so, one of our mutual friends." And then a few years down the line, after I'd already started teaching, we found out that my brother never had done a proper teacher's training with his teacher, but he made it up. He made the initiation process up, and I was so disappointed. And then I went to Germany again and re-studied with somebody in Hamburg, whose teacher was from the German Reiki Alliance, and went back to Japan, re-initiated all my old students or those who wanted to be re-initiated. And then did that for a while until I met Chioko Yamaguchi, who then became my teacher in 2000.
Oh, wow. Okay. So by then, I have to ask, what at that time did you even think of the system of Reiki? Like, what was it in your life, and how did you feel it was, adding to your experience of just what was it to you back then? Or what did it seem to be?
As I told you, I grew up with healing, and I found that quite normal. I remember when I was 16, 17, I felt something coming out of my hands, and I thought, wow, it would be really cool if one could do healing with the hands. But then I kind of forgot until when I was, I think, 28 or so. I was in India with Osho again, and I had a terrible headache. And my then girlfriend, she knew somebody who practiced Reiki, so she said, hey, maybe I can get that girl to come and give you a Reiki treatment. Maybe then you'll feel better. So the girl came over and treated me. I was 28 at the time. And it was the most boring thing I'd ever experienced in my whole life, and it didn't work. Afterwards, I went to a small medical center and got some painkillers and took those and thought, oh boy, this is really a waste of time, this Reiki business. That was my first experience. And then a very, very odd thing happened, which was that I realized that I wanted to learn Reiki, and I'm asking myself, why do you want to learn something that you felt was the most boring thing in the world, and it didn't work? Why do you want to learn that? But somehow, many years later, I understood what happened was that my soul got touched. It got tickled by that experience, somehow way beyond my conscious mind. And then I started looking around, looking for a teacher, and couldn't find anybody to teach me until a few years later, my brother called me and said, "Hey, why don't you come over and learn from me?" So this is how it all started. It's a really very funny story.
It's a really interesting story. I mean, really, really interesting, especially, just a little side note, and I want to go back to how this all developed for you. But in your classes, I have to say, I mean, it's, I guess, not surprising hearing that you had this type of background, because you have this beautiful like radiance about you, and you just seem to like project and embody love, and you're so kind, and your classes are just, I mean, it's a beautiful space just to sit with you, be in your presence, and just how tender and kind and patient you are with students. Yeah, it's interesting. I can't even imagine that there would have been a time where you're like, what? I don't know about what this stuff is, to see where you are today. So after all of that, how did you come into Jikiden? And what is that? For people who don't know or have never heard of Jikiden Reiki, what is it and how did you come upon it?
All right, Jikiden Reiki is not another type of Reiki. There's only one type of Reiki. Reiki
Right.
is Reiki, and that's it. Yeah? So whatever comes out of anyone's hands who has been initiated is the same. Yeah? It's all the same. And if somebody says that my Reiki is better than yours, they don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea. It's just an ego trip. So, but after I learned Reiki from my brother, I had been living in Japan already for 4 years. And I thought something is wrong, because what I had learned, it didn't match my experience of Japan. I knew the language by that time. I had a language school for many years in Sapporo, in the north of Japan, with my ex-wife. And the Reiki teaching and the Reiki philosophy that I had learned from my brother really didn't seem Japanese at all. So I was suspicious. And out of that suspicion, I started to research. And that research led to writing, how many, 10, I think 10 books on Reiki by now. And it was really out of that suspicion, out of that feeling that something is really wrong and something doesn't sit well with me, that I started researching it. And in the process of that research, I came across Chioko Yamaguchi, who was a student of Chujiro Hayashi, or Hayashi Sensei, who had learned from him from 1937. And I got to meet her and to learn from her. And then I really came home to that teaching, because it lacks all new age ideas. It's just pure, straight, very simple Japanese spirituality.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I wanted to ask you about that. Do you think because you at that time spoke Japanese, and even if you think about the different terminology, which is in Japanese in the system of Reiki, did your understanding of the language also point you in certain directions, or cause you to see a difference in maybe the way it was explained versus what these words meant or where they came from?
You see, what I had initially learned, it was a kind of a hodgepodge out of all sorts of new age thoughts, and somehow it didn't seem authentic to me. And later on, many years later, I realized actually what had happened. What happened was that when Reiki was brought to the US by Hayashi Sensei in 1937, it was, he obviously had Japanese students in the beginning. And then one of those students was Takata Sensei, who did an incredible job really saving Reiki for the rest of the world. However, after their initial wave, the first students who were Japanese, came another wave of students who were not Japanese, who were American, who were Chinese, who were probably Europeans. And when they wanted to learn Reiki, they had to create a whole new language, a whole new Reiki language, and they had to translate some of the Japanese concepts that for which there are no words in our languages. So because of that translation and that impossibility of translating some of those concepts, the whole teaching, everything changed.
It's really interesting you say that, because I'm thinking now about your classes, and it's interesting that you say it's just kind of, it doesn't have all of the new age elements, and it is kind of direct. I mean, one of the things that I appreciated most about learning from you was how in depth you go in the history, and the joy you have when you share with us about the history and the slides and all of the information that you share. But it is pretty direct. I mean, it's pretty much to the point. There's not a lot of, frills around it, I guess you would say, that I have experienced in other classes. I mean, it's pretty to the point. And even I was telling you, this book of yours I read several years ago, This Is Reiki. This was very helpful to me. One, because you explain a lot of the history and like the foundation beneath the surface of what we may be practicing now. But even small things like the hands-on, you explain this in here as well, that wasn't necessarily part of the original way. So could you talk about that? Like, even for you in your practice, and if you have a lot of students that come from, whatever it is that we may have learned, what is that about Reiki that you think, from your point of view, that maybe people don't know, that you would like them to know about the system, just in what it is, again, to you? I mean, just in that very simplistic way.
Okay, the easiest way to explain really what Reiki is that if you hit your head, what do? Yeah? You touch it, and perhaps you look and see if it's bleeding, and if you see it's not bleeding, you put your hand again. Yeah? This is Reiki, really. It's the most natural, inborn human treasure that we have. That's it, and we've forgotten about it, and we make it very complicated. My teacher, Chioko Sensei, always used to say, you guys, you think too much. Right? Why you make it so complicated? It's the most simple thing in the world. You just put your hands on your head, that means on, and you take them off, and it's off. That's it. Yeah, very, very simple.
Yeah, I mean, it is, especially when you say it that way. But it truly is. And another thing I wanted to point out as well, for people who may be new to you and your work, just like I said, you do a really good job of sharing the history of Reiki, and even down to one of my favorite stories from class, and it's also in the book, is the origin of the second symbol and that whole story. I mean, it just, I don't know how to explain. It's like something like heart opening, understanding some of the background and the history and where things really stem from. It's almost like you feel a different texture of it. But I wanted to ask you, why was it so important to you to share this and write all of the books that you've written about Reiki?
My spiritual name, Arjava, it means authentic. Yeah, so this is my thing. This is my niche in life. I want to do everything that I do. I want to do authentically, real, from the heart. I want to give myself fully. I don't want to hold anything back. This is my thing. Yeah? So when I stumble across whatever it is, whether it's going to the supermarket or doing Reiki or having relationships with people, I want to do it authentically from the heart and give it everything I've got. Yeah? So this is my standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah. So how is it? Oh, go ahead.
Let's go back to the what is Reiki really? I said it's very simple. That's not the whole truth. There's also something else behind it, which is that the Japanese believe that we don't have only one body, but that we have three bodies, and the most subtle of those, the immortal body, is our soul, and they believe that only here on earth a soul can evolve. I hope no extraterrestrials are listening to us. At the moment they will be disappointed, yeah? But they believe to be able to evolve spiritually, you have to be in a physical body. So you have the soul, which is our immortal core or essence, and that around that forms a physical body, and around that physical body form the etheric bodies, or our aura, our mind, our heart. And Reiki is incredible because by touching the physical body, you touch all of those other two bodies as well, and healing happens on an incredible level just by touching.
So in your view of that, is it a process of kind of harmonizing the three?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the soul actually doesn't need any work at all. It's perfect.
So harmonizing the two into
Yes.
alignment. Okay. Yeah, no, that's really, really
harmonizing the two in alignment with the other.
right. No, that's a beautiful way of thinking of it and seeing it, really. I mean, it's interesting too, because of course, in our experiences here, as our soul is learning and evolving, I mean, we have so many things that kind of, you know, knock us off balance, so to speak, or throw us for a loop. So it is a beautiful thing that we have something that we can connect with to help to bring us back into that space. And that's one of the things too, I think, with the system of Reiki that has been most evident to me is the clarity of mind that comes. I mean, the opening of the heart, yes, but this clarity of mind. So I wanted to ask you about that too, in terms of this, the alignment, the balancing, and these types of things, because there is a idea that we're just, balancing energy, but what does that mean? Like what does that even mean? So to you, what is the benefit of this system?
The benefit really is to get in touch with your soul, with your essence, with your divinity, with that inside of you that doesn't need any change, that is perfect as it is right here and right now. That's it. Yeah? So it's not really Reiki. I wouldn't say it's a way to enlightenment, but it is enlightened action in itself.
Oh, it's enlightened action.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
You don't do it to get somewhere, because trying to get somewhere is all illusion. It's crazy. You don't need to get anywhere. Everything is perfect as it is. Everything is wonderful as it is. We just have to get it.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask you this because it's very interesting too. And taking your classes, and even sometimes the talks that you've done, a lot of times when you travel, there are representatives with you as well from Japan. And so with the Jikiden Institute, I would say, are you the only English speaking representative that travels around the world to share this, or?
No, there are many others now. There are a few hundred teachers that teach. The institute was founded by Chiyoko Yamaguchi and her son Tadao in the late 90s. And unfortunately, she passed away in 2003. And after she passed away, her son Tadao took over the presidency, and I am now the vice president of the association, but there are many, many teachers that teach all over the world, that teach beautifully. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are a wonderful teacher. And just to say, so people know if they are interested as well, I mean, one, you have beautiful books that people can order and read and all of this and get so much information from you. But are you still traveling internationally, and how often do you come to the States?
I travel quite a bit, about 6 months out of the year, and I come to the US twice a year, once in the autumn, usually to New York, and in the spring to California and to Virginia. So I'm going to be in San Diego and in Los Angeles in May, and in Virginia Beach in May, and then in New York in October, and then also I go to Canada in October. So I'm all over the place. My website is frankarjavapetter.com, and you can find all the schedule there and all the necessary information, the organizers and all that. I'm also on Facebook. So I'm easy to, I think I'm easy to find.
Yes, no, you are. And I will absolutely put all of the links of how to connect with you down in the show description. It's just, I'm trying to think of how to ask you this. Well, one, I also want to ask you before I get to that question and before we go, for people who may have never heard about Reiki or unfamiliar with it and interested in taking classes, who is this for in your point of view? Like, is this, I mean, because there's different opinions about it. So I just want to know from your point of view, who is this really beneficial for?
For everybody. Reiki is for everybody. Literally for everybody. I think especially if people have kids, small kids, it's very useful because you can take care of your children at home. You don't have to go to the doctor for every little thing. I'm not against medical science at all, yeah, but so many things we can handle ourselves. When the kids have a fever or stomach ache, you can take care of it. I have 2 small kids myself, and we do Reiki pretty much every day when they fall or when they have something. At the moment, half the family here has a cold, so I'm treating them. It's very, very useful. It's really useful if you're working in the medical field, if you're a medical doctor or a nurse. I think that would be good. If you're a teacher or anybody who really, any human being should learn it, I think. It's a great, really a great way of working with yourself, working with others, and putting your love really into action.
And what do you think it has done for you personally? Like, what is your relationship with it, and how do you think it's enhanced your life in any way?
I think because of the Reiki, I've become very loving. Yeah, because that's really what it is. You put your love into action, and if you do this again and again and again, it's quite a drug. It gets addictive, and you just want to keep doing it, not only in the Reiki classroom, but in your normal daily life. You just want to be loving and kind, and it's really amazing. It's so sweet.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. It has changed my life so much, and I'm so thankful to have been introduced to the system and the practice. And yeah, I mean, it's sometimes hard to articulate our relationship to it and what it means to us. But I know that, we had a little technical difficulty at first, and I don't want to take your whole evening, Arjava. I'm so thankful that you came to share your story with everyone. And again, of course, I will put how to contact you down in the comments. And just to note, you will be in the United States in May. So that information, will that be on your website as well?
Yes, it's up there. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I have to ask you too, because there's people that listen globally. Do you already know any other countries or where you're going to be besides
Yes,
the US?
yes. I'm going to South Africa in the end of the month, this month, and then afterwards I go to Bahrain in the Middle East, then to Germany, to Holland, to the US, to again to Germany, to Portugal, to the UK, to Colombia and Brazil later in the year, and so on. So I'm all over the place.
You know, hearing you say that, it really highlights how much this has grown. I mean, you're literally going around the entire globe. And I have to ask you this too. I mean, from when you first started in this, did you imagine that it would grow the way that it has? And do you personally see it going anywhere in particular? Or what do you think of all this? I mean, it must be different than when you started, right?
Yeah, it's different. And of course, my situation, I would have never expected my life to go like this. Actually, I had no plan to write books or anything. It's just a big total surprise to me. Yeah? So I think Reiki's become so popular because it's, especially now when everybody's so concerned and busy with technology and all of that, I think Reiki is so important to bring us back to basics, back to communication, to touch, to looking at somebody, to being with people. And that's really amazing. That's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it is amazing how much it's grown. And I mean, I've not been practicing nearly as long as you, but it's interesting to me, even in these few short years, how it used to be, I would say Reiki and people would, what is that? And now people at least have heard of it. And it's
Yes.
phenomenal the way it's growing.
Yes, we live in a small place in Greece, on a Greek island in Lesbos, and it's a village of about 1,000 people. We built a dojo, a training center here, and I treat people every day. And these people are just very normal Greek islanders, who are coming to us for treatments the same way they go to the doctor or the chiropractor or the shiatsu practitioner. It's just like that. And they don't think it's weird at all. They just come when they don't feel well. And some of them come every day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think if anything, it excites me the idea that we're all tuning back into that core essence of who we are, whether it's through Reiki or other practices, whatever people are, whatever gets them there. But it seems that there's a deeper craving for that now, which is beautiful.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you find something that reminds you of your essence, of your being, then you're good.
Yes.
Whatever it is, whether it's meditation or Reiki or yoga or Ayurveda, it's all good.
Yes. Ah, beautiful. Well, again, I'm really thankful that you came to share your story, because I mean, what an amazing adventure. I can't just reading your bio alone, I was like, wow, India, then Japan, and now in Greece, and you travel around the world to share this. It's interesting to look at how it seems like it's always been your way, or just connected to you somehow. How could you not be sharing in the way that you are? So thank you so much for all that you share. Thank you for being my teacher. I'm so glad I found you. And again, I will put your ways to contact you in the show description.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So see you soon. I'll come in May. Let's meet.
Oh no, yeah. I know. I wrote it down. I'm not going to forget. I can't wait to see you soon.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.